Sxsw 2008, South by Southwest. I am sitting here with the amazing Saul Williams, spoken word poet, author, man, the list goes on, musician, actor. I even heard you were a dancer for Public Enemy.
Not for Public Enemy. I danced to Public Enemy, but I was a dancer for a rap group called KIN in Atlanta back in the mid-90s.
The mid-90s.
The mid-90s.
Wow, that's totally rad, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what was that basically the start? The dancing was a.
Oh, you know, I've always danced. You know, like just I was a break dancer when I was a kid. I grew up in New York, and you know, at the start of break dancing and all that stuff, and you know, was battling at school and looking to see who in the neighborhood brought a refrigerator so we could cut up the box and use it to practice windmills on, you know, so that just translated into dancing in the clubs. I used to be really into like house and techno and all that stuff, and I was one of those like raver dance kids for a minute, you know. I went through a lot of spells. I was an exchange student to Brazil when I was 16, and school was on strike while I was there. And so I connected with this other exchange student from Belgium, and we would just go from city to city. Like we'd take a bus from like São Paulo to Rio, and we'd travel by day, arrive in the evening, go to a mall, find the cool people and find out where the club was, go to a club, stay there all night, get somebody to take us out for breakfast, hop on a bus, go to the next city and do it again. So I was, you know, a club hopping kid for a long time.
That's awesome. You know, I guess it's kind of one of those, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Is that dancing what brought you into, you know, doing spoken word and all that kind of stuff, feeling the music, or?
The poetry really, my interest in poetry, I would say, stemmed from a few different sources. One is the fact that, you know, I started writing as a rapper. When I was like 8 or 9 years old, I got really passionate about writing rhymes. And so that was fun. Two, that same time, I started getting really excited about acting and doing school plays. The first school play I did was Julius Caesar. I played Mark Antony, then I did Romeo and Juliet and played Romeo, and then I did musicals like Oliver Twist and all this stuff. But when you study acting, you know, it's one thing to take it to the stage, but when you're at the table before you go to the stage, you're breaking down the language. Especially with Shakespeare, I got really into the intricacies of what he was writing and why and all the layers of meaning, and then I would apply that to writing raps, you know, and so like when I was 11, I was trying to write rhymes in Old English, you know, and then I was like also studying French, and so I'd try to write rhymes in French and English and all this stuff, you know. And then my father was a Baptist minister, and so he was an orator, you know, and so there was also that tradition which, you know, I felt related to and witnessed a great deal of, you know, in the same way that me and my friends would sit around and critique different rappers. I'd listen to my dad and his friends sit around and critique ministers and their styles of ministry, their styles of leaning on the pulpit and what they would say and how and why. And the first people I ever saw with like spinning rims and gold chains and name rings and leather seats and, you know, Italian leather in their cars, they were ministers. The ministers did it before, you know, the MCs did it, you know, and so that exposed me to a lot of that too.
Okay, excellent. You know, you were talking about, you know, studying Shakespeare and stuff at such an early age. You do have a line that you've written that says, I used to sell my homework. Did you used to sell your homework?
I did.
That is awesome.
That's in a song called Our Father. I sold my homework when most of you kids are too busy to do the dome work. Well, yeah, what I'm talking about is the fact that I grew up in a city called Newburgh, New York. It's about an hour outside of New York City. For the past 35 years, Newburgh has had the highest murder rate, drug trafficking rate, crime rate in New York State. With just 40,000 people, it has higher rate of crime than New York City, just per ratio. And so when I was 14, I probably had at least 14 friends who sold crack. I had 14-year-old friends who drove Porsches, who drove, you know, at that time it was more about Audis and Maximas, you know, and getting like what was that, is that called the Sidekick? Yeah, there was a car, Suzuki Sidekick or whatever.
Suzuki Sidekick.
And people used to get the top taken off and get a custom like cloth cover for it and all this stuff. And those kids would, one, they protected me because they liked me as a rapper and a dancer, even though they thought I was a bit nerdy. You know, I was down with them because my dad preached everybody's funeral, and essentially, you know, and so they kind of protected me and would give me money for my homework or answers to tests and stuff. And so, yeah, a lot of my education was funded by drug dealers.
All right. You know, talking about your father being a minister and stuff, and referring back to the Our Father song, you do have your father on that. What was it like to have, you know, a portion of what your father is saying in something that you're doing now? Was that, you know, an influential thing for you?
Yeah, you know, I recorded that. My father was delivering a Father's Day sermon back in '99, and they had a radio ministry at his church, and I had stopped going to church long before then, actually, but I'd gone, you know, for my dad on that day and what have you, and I stole the recording. I steal from churches, and what's crazy is that track that he's on, and I programmed that beat under it. I didn't put him on a metronome or anything. I realized my dad's sense of timing and rhythm as a minister, and a lot of ministers, is just so ingrained in rhythm and delivery, you know? But so that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is the fact that, you know, I've found it really interesting, you know, like, that song says, "Our Father which art in St. Francis Hospital for hypertension, our fathers which art in dark bars and prisons, lethal injection," and then it goes, "Dear Goddess, we made this breakbeat just for you as an offering." And what it was I was stepping into this analysis of Christian culture, American culture, all this stuff that puts the man up here and throws a sheet over the woman and calls her, you know, a Holy Ghost. But I was in a church that was filled with women and children, and my dad was one of the few men inside of the church, but talking about the, you know, the father and the importance of the father. And I was like, Dad, the church is filled with women and children. It's the Father who's the Holy Ghost. Yeah. You know, he's the ghost, you know. The woman is here, you know. And so that song actually that I have him on is actually has me critiquing you know, Christianity and institutionalized religion and all of the, you know, patriarchal perspective that is within it. But he just found it beautiful. I remember him picking me up from the airport or something, and like it was in his CD deck in his car, and him just being like proud of the fact that I recorded him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you know, most parents really are proud of, you know, the things that their kids do. Now, you said that you do come to South by, try and make it, you know, every year. I saw your performance last night, which was absolutely amazing. It was at Vice. And you said that was the first time you had ever performed as Niggy Tardas. Yeah. What was it like preparing for that type of performance as opposed to going up and preparing it for, you know, a typical Saul Williams type of performance?
Well, that's the thing, is that there's an idea of what a typical Saul Williams is, and other people have an understanding of that better than I do. Because I know what a typical Saul Williams day is like. I know what that's about, you know, but other people have their idea of what that's like. Oh, he must not do this. He must do this. He's really a poet first. Like, I discovered poetry right around the same time that people discovered me, you know, and it's a world that I passed through, but because that's the first way that people heard of me, they think of me as a poet first. I was actually a musician first. I was actually an actor first. And so the Niggy Tardas concept and idea is about many things politically and what have you, but what it also did was create a way for people to excuse themselves from their perception of me and allow myself to just have some fun without, you know, people saying, but what about the poems? Because I'm, you know, like, what about the poems? I don't care what you paid for. I'm here to have a good time. You know, I'm not, you know, like the reason why I'm not working a 9 to 5 is to avoid living a mechanical lifestyle, you know, and many artists fall into the process of living a mechanical lifestyle, trying to live up to what their audience expects of them, as opposed to challenging themselves to continue to grow beyond boundaries and what have you. And so preparing for this show was fun because, one, Niggy Tardas for me is an excuse to shop. You know, it's an excuse to talk to my, you know, to accessorize. It's an excuse to, like, I would want to wear this stuff, but if I didn't have, you know, that album and concept and all that, and I'm up here like this, people are like, what's Saul on, you know, what's that about? I mean, and maybe it's my own misconception of that, you know. But what it really does is it's called the inevitable rise and liberation of Niggy Tardas. But it is about the inevitable rise and liberation of, you know, the human spirit, the free spirit, the human psyche of our generation, seeing beyond race and identity, realizing that race is a social construct, that we don't need banners of black and white to continually divide ourselves amongst each other, that we're human and all this stuff, and realize that we're hybrids, and to express that musically and creatively through art, through music, you know. And then I, you know, get to capitalize on that expression by collaborating with a lot of artists. You know, like I collaborated with Trent Reznor, who produced the album. I collaborated with Andre Metoyer, who did a lot of the artwork inside of the PDF file that we released when we released the album, 33 pages of artwork. And he also like designed stuff that I wore on stage last night, like that jacket and a lot of the mirrors. He creates mirrors. He's a Texas-based artist from Louisiana, collaborated with a designer, jewelry and shoes designer named Melody Asani, who did stuff like, you know, the Tardust ring and my stud, and, you know, like it was an excuse for me to collaborate with other artists and to share a common vision of, you know, like, let's do something really unique and fun for the industry and trust that it'll get the attention that we would need, you know, to feed ourselves and blah, 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 you know. And so instead of, you know, going the route of conforming and, oh, I need to do a song with Pharrell and Timbaland, I decided, no, actually, why don't we go more left field, you know, and have fun.
Yeah, you know, I'm starting to see a lot of artists, you know, starting to collaborate with other artists, not just musically, but, you know, in other areas, whether it be dance, whether it be studio art, whether it be anything.
With Matthew Barney or something.
Exactly. All of the, you know, her new album that just came out is, you know, is very, very artistic. Even all of the videos from start to finish, you know, everything is totally artistic. You know, one thing I do want to ask you about, you speak a lot about androgyny and androgynous cosmology. I would love for you to explain your idea of androgyny a little bit further.
It's not necessarily an idea that I've developed. It's an idea that I tuned into, you know, which was simply that as I was exploring, you know, this, you know, I've walked into places and just, you know, so many times encounter people who have this fixed idea of what they expect to come out of my mouth and how they expect it to sound and blah, 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 simply because of how I look, because of my visage and the idea of, oh, this is a young black man, he's gonna rap. You know, and then they're like, you know, then the compliments come, oh, you're so articulate. Wow, I didn't know that you listened to Cat Stevens. Oh, wow, how did you hear of Joni Mitchell? Da-da-da-da-da. Oh my gosh, you're reading Artaud. Oh, wow, you know, like, why, you know, it's why does it surprise you? I'm raised in America. I'm tuned into the same stuff as you. You know, I'm more American than any of the things that you see me as, you know. And yes, the urban experience is real and all these things are real, but, you know, we're not confined by that. So in stepping beyond that in my personal conception of race, the next thing that I began to look at was gender. And what I realized that I remember one time just sitting amongst friends and all of a sudden I tuned into my body language. And I saw that I was tilted to the side and I saw how I was holding my hands and I saw all the stuff that I was doing and I was like, oh, I'm doing all this stuff so that they don't think I'm gay. It was real simple. I was like, oh, my body language is simply about conveying this idea of masculinity. So then I started, you know, critiquing this idea and analyzing this idea of masculinity. And what is it? You know, and then looking at the traits that are deemed as feminine, like being vulnerable. You know, I think of Bush during, you know, right after 9/11 and saying, we will show no sign of vulnerability, which said more than he intended to say. One, it showed that he saw vulnerability as weakness. I see vulnerability as the greatest power imaginable. You know, I don't think that stiff robotism, mechanical way of, oh, I'm going to show you that I'm strong by clenching my fists and showing you that I see that as weakness. I see that as clear and see-through, like, oh, I can't trust you. Oh, you're lying. Oh, you're insecure. Oh, you think that might is right. Oh, I get it. I know what church you go to. Any of them. You know, so I started applying, you know, the smaller picture of my own, you know, masculine identity to what I was seeing in the larger scope. And I was looking at my dad and the church and the idea of this, you know, and common sense would tell you that a holy trinity would be you know, why not be mother, father, child, as opposed to father, male child, and ghost? Why not be mother, mother, child? Why not any of these things, you know, like if it's based on love? You know, if it's based on transcending the human condition and becoming one with the cosmos. So androgyny, for me, has to do with, you know, the idea of being a hybrid. And that's what Niggy Stardust is about. You know, where Ziggy Stardust with David Bowie, he was essentially taking our perspective of gender and sexuality and putting it under a microscope or in front of a TV camera on the side of a lunchbox and saying, well, what am I? Look at me in this dress. What am I? Am I any less of a man? Do you find me attractive? Does it make you scared that you find me attractive? You know? And with Niggy Stardust, my perspective is, you know, he is a hybrid. He's someone who realizes that, you know, beyond how you see me, there's the truth of who I am. And that truth resonates beyond any idea that you may have of what it means to be black, any idea of you may have what it means to be a hip hop artist. What the fuck, you know, like, yeah, I can rhyme. Yeah, I can sing. Yeah, I can recite Shakespeare. Yeah, I'm all of these things. And it's not, it shouldn't be, yeah, that's great that you find it exciting and intriguing because you don't expect someone of my character, you know, or based on how I look to be able to do that. But it's about realizing that, as I said earlier, I'm becoming a bit redundant. It's just, I think that the role of our generation is to transcend the stuff that we were born into. I don't care if you're born into a Democratic or Republican household, a Christian or a Catholic or Judaic or Islamic household. You know, like, whatever you're born into is one thing, but finding the courage to step beyond that and find who you are is essential. And if you find, you know, that you connect more with people of the same sex because the people of the opposite sex only look at you a particular way, if you feel more empowered over here, then so be it. Feel empowered. Feel empowered, you know? And it's about that hybrid identity, you know, that I am finding more resonance with in my life, and now I'm projecting onto my work through Niggy Stardust, you know, which is, you know, it's to take the hate and the confusion and to find a creative way to explore beyond that and get people to go, whoa, I would never say the word nigger, but I love saying niggy. What is that? Nigger sounds horrible. Niggy sounds cute. Yeah. You know? And black people and white people have an issue, like, or an issue, or they're like, that's brilliant, that's crazy, that's horrible, that's genius. That, you know, you're like, how do you feel about it? You know? And so, yeah. Niggy's androgynous. Why not?
Why not? Why not? No, absolutely. And, you know, whenever you do speak about that, because I'm finding more, and especially, you know, with my generation that's coming out, we do have that. I'm seeing more of that mindset. Maybe it's just because I'm located in Austin, you know, but, you know, what do you think about the younger generation becoming more open-minded, and especially with this whole, you know, concept of feeling and living through androgynous ways and stuff like that?
Well, just, you know, I think it's essential, you know, when we talk about a hybrid generation, you know, it's essential that the idea of questioning, like I said, what we're born into, you know, like, Austin is not a location. Austin is, you know, a sort of like cancerous disease that we aim to infect this country with, you know. It's the same disease that they caught in Seattle. It's the same disease that they caught in Fort Greene and Williamsburg. It's the same disease that they caught in Columbus, Ohio. You know, it's a disease that we're spreading, you know. That disease hit us before. It was called the 60s, you know. And then the corporate empire did what they did, not necessarily on purpose, but people started making more conventional choices like, well, we can't have that. Come on, get real, get real, get real. And this idea of get real is another disease. Just like keep it real is a disease when you don't realize that you have the potential to manifest your reality, that you can envision it, imagine it, and then begin the process of manifesting it. Look at science fiction, which is our lives, which is these sidekicks and Blackberries and cell phones and flat screen TVs. They weren't created first by engineers and scientists. They were created first by science fiction writers who dared to imagine that they could exist, and empowered the engineers to say, I think I can do that. I think I can do that. Oh my God, yes, I think it's possible, you know? So that we have to realize that when we start getting real as we get older and start losing courage and start becoming jaded and start telling our children stuff like, you know, well, I'll support you as an actor if you get a law degree. and you do it because you want mom or dad's support, but you don't realize that they have started the process of weaning you from your intuitive passion and connecting you to this idea of what they think is best for you so that you can be secure, you know? It's disconnecting us from our source, you know? And so to me, it's just about finding that courage, and I think
the strength to be who it is that you are, and to break away from the chains that your parents or society has held you down by.
And you can do that lovingly.
Oh, absolutely.
You can do it compassionately. You can, like it's funny. You do it when the kids do it. They usually their first convert is usually their mom. You know,
mom seems to be the easiest.
Yeah, mom is the easiest. You know, mom is like, hey,
because then
I'm thinking of getting a tattoo too. My mom's 67. She's like, I'm thinking of getting a tattoo. I kind of like it. The guitar dust. I'm taking belly dancing lessons. You know, like all this stuff. I was playing your album for my friend who's 75, and I'm like, Mom, what are you doing? We listened to your album as we were driving to the jazz festival. We had you and Etta James on, and it was a real interesting contrast. It was like, Mom, they're open, and they can start opening the dads too, to get them to shift their diets and stop killing themselves. Like we become brittle and stuck, and so it's so important to maintain the identity of being a student, of being young, of being open. Youth has nothing to do with age. It has to do with perspective. It has to do with vulnerability and openness. Like, I'm really interested in that. Tell me more. As opposed to, I tried that when I was 18. I gave that up by the time I was da-da-da-da-da. I know more than that. That was been there, done that. What are you doing now? I'm wearing this suit and going to work at 9 o'clock in the morning. Great, have fun, dude.
You don't want to live that lifestyle. Now that we were talking earlier that you do come to South by, trying to make it, every year. This is your first Nikki Stardust performance. You performed yesterday earlier on the day stage. Now, do you have any other performances? You had a book signing earlier.
I just did a book signing, and I'm heading over to the Fader House right now to do another Nikki Stardust show at 5 p.m. And this is the beginning of the Tar Spangled Banner tour for me. We leave here and we go to Vancouver and 30, 40 dates throughout the country, and then we go to Europe and do it over there, and we're touring, we're doing some dates with Rage over in Europe, and come back here and do some exciting stuff here over the summer and festivals. So this is the beginning of the Nikki Stardust tour, and so I'm having a ball, and it's great to start it here at South by Southwest.
Being at South by Southwest, people that live in Austin, we always want to know, what is it that draws you here? Is it the food? Is it the culture, the people? What is it that you enjoy when you come to Austin? Maybe away from South by.
Okay. Well, I've been here the first time I came to Austin, I was touring with the Mars Volta. And it was during the Delouse and the Comatorium tour, and we did emos. And I saw all the kids show up, and was like, this city is interesting, and it was an amazing concert and night, and it was the beginning of, a little love affair with and then it was like, hey, you got to go to Whole Foods, it's the first one, all this stuff, it's like, oh, okay, and then what is it, Waterloo Records, Book People, and all that. Book People's amazing bookstore, so that there's an appreciation of the arts here, and it's cool. It's just it's a all around just good vibe, basically. Yeah.
Is there anybody else that you're going to see or you would like to see?
I know who I would like to see. Like last night, I performed at the same time as the Black Keys, and I heard of them when I was in a record store in D.C. and it was one of those times where the little I don't know, obnoxious me was afraid to ask the guy working at the store who it was because I felt like I should know. I was like, oh, this is Muddy Waters, right? They're like, nah, dude, this is the new Black Keys. I was like, oh, wow, I got to get this. I think it was a Magic Potion thing. And so I really want to see them perform. I don't know if I'll be able to catch them before I leave. We performed the same time last night. There's tons of bands that are here. that I cannot think of the name of. I was excited last night that I got to be on the same stage with the Noisettes.
Oh, they were amazing. I saw them come on before you.
Yeah,
that was
exactly.
Definitely some high energy.
Yeah, they were great.
Started.
Earl Greyhound, Game Rebellion. Who else? I mean, there's so many people here. And I have no idea. That's the one thing that sucks about coming here as an artist is that, you know, you connect with like your manager, road manager, and you tune into like, well, what's my schedule? What's my schedule?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do? And, you know, trying to stay busy or what have you. And you don't get to see that many people. Yeah. I got to see some cool stuff last year. I know when I go over to the Fader House, I'll chill there for a while.
Yeah.
I think they have pretty good taste.
Yeah.
And so I like, you know, the people that hit their stage pretty often. But yeah, I don't know. I got to meet Dizzy Rascal earlier today, and so that was cool. I got to shake hands with Thurston Moore a few minutes ago, and so that was cool. You know, so it's always fun, you know, to meet the people that I see on my iPod Shuffle.
All right, well, we're about out of time, but I want to say thank you so much for coming in. And, you know, if you didn't get a chance to make it to a show last night, you are starting the Niggy Tardust tour.
Yeah, the Tar Spangled Banner tour is starting now. You can go to SaulWilliams.com or go to my MySpace page.
You can also go to, what is it, NiggyTardust.com.
NiggyTardust.com, yeah.
And you can actually buy the CD
you can buy the CD there. Yeah, yeah. We did me and Trent conceptualized the release. We wanted the release essentially to be as creative as the album. And so we found a way of basically offering it for free with the option of paying $5 for it. You know what Radiohead did? What we did is we offered an option of bit rates that you could get it from anything from FLAC to like 320 bit rate to 198. I think theirs was at 128. You know, we offered 33 pages of artwork with it. The download comes with, basically you choose the bit rate, at 33 pages of artwork. Really, really cool experience releasing an album in that way, really empowering for me, and it's been going great. So I'm excited, and now we're getting ready to release the physical version of the album this May, and there's about 7 songs that Trent and I did that I saved for the physical release. So there's new material and all this stuff, so I'm looking forward to that.
Excellent. All right. Well, so am I.